afternoon and welcome everyone. It is Tuesday, it is 4 p.m. ET, and you have found us here on A Mighty Blaze on Crime Time. I am your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan. How did you like that video that Margaret Pinard made? It is awesome and very cool. We love it, and thank you, Margaret, for that. I am the USA Today bestselling author of 13 going on 14 novels of suspense. My current novel is Her Perfect Life, which you can see on the door behind me. My new book, The House Guest, will be out in February, and it is sort of Gaslight meets Thelma and Louise, a movie book. Just the thing for Zac Bissonnette. We are so thrilled and so delighted this afternoon to be able to talk to the brilliant and talented and hilarious and wonderful Zac Bissonnette, whose debut cozy, A Killing in Costumes, is out today. Zac, this is it's a great mystery. It's twisty and fun. It's adorable. It has wonderful main characters. The setting is terrific, and it is so also touching and nostalgic and knowledgeable. I mean, I loved it, and we're so honored to have you here today. How is it? This is your pub day. Congratulations on your debut.
Thank you. The whole time you've been talking, I've been thinking about Gaslight meets Thelma and Louise and trying to sort that out. So I'm mostly excited for that. I mostly just want to hear about that. But I guess we should talk about mine. It's my pub date. So this is just so cool to be on here with your viewers. I'm so excited for this book. I have loved cozies forever, and it is just so cool to be doing my first one. So.
And you can see that people are coming now. Here's Priya and Renee and Darlene and Shanton. All Renee Herskowitz is saying happy pub day. Priya is saying happy pub day. I hope you'll come back or look at the comments during the show or afterwards. At least come back, because it's so much fun to see how many people are here today.
No, there is no one nicer than mystery people. There really is no one in the world, because I was a business journalist, before this, and they were not so nice. So this is awesome. This is really a lot of fun.
It's interesting, and I've lived that, and I see that I think it's because, and tell me what you think about this. Everybody always loves a good book, and we voraciously read them, and then we need another one.
Yeah.
And so we can read my book, and we can read your book, and then we can read everybody's book, and it's all everybody helps everyone else.
So I think it's so much of it's that. I also think, like, for me, when I think back to periods of like distress in my own life and sadness, I was in New York in March 2020, which was not a pleasant time. And like mysteries have always been for me the thing that was like a pick me up. It's like a feel good thing for me. So I think maybe it's some of that it brings out the best in people, because it's a lot of the best memories, certainly in my life, of reading books, whether it's my grandfather or my mother, that kind of thing. So it's it's just a wonderful.
Do you remember books you read when you were a little kid?
Of course, everything. I mean, my favorite children's book, I think it was called Granny the Pag, P-A-G. Emma Baldwin, I think, wrote it, but it was just a story about a little girl whose grandmother was a motorcycle person. That was my favorite children's book, but of course all the mystery stuff too. But I mean, yeah, like I think of my life, like the highlights of it is always being like what kinds of books I was reading at that time.
And it's such a shareable thing too, because when you meet someone in the mystery community or in any community, and you say, "What have you read recently?" And if it's something new, that's wonderful. And if it's something that you've also read, that's also wonderful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you can never have enough of them. And the cozy people are just so cool, and I always, I can't think of it, talking about this without like writers like Jen McKinley and Miranda James, who I just think are such talented writers. They could write anything, and they've chosen to really devote their talent to these books that just make people feel better when you're seeing sort of people solving crimes and getting out of tough situations with empathy and friendship. Because I think cozies are really about warm relationships in a way that I always think of that as being the sort of distinguishing thing of cozy mysteries, is that they're about warmth between characters, and in a way that sort of suspense often is.
Well, you have tapped into that so gorgeously in A Killing in Costumes, and I want to talk about that a little bit in a minute. I want to read one. Jen McKinley and Miranda James both gave you marvelous blurbs for your book, and I agree. They're both at the peak of their performance, and wonderful, wonderful people.
It's also cool because they're such great people too.
I so agree. But another great person is Tom Sawyer, who is the Emmy-nominated head writer and showrunner of Murder, She Wrote, which is, iconic. And he said of A Killing in Costumes, mystery readers, especially those with a taste for vintage Tinseltown movies, stars, glamour, and the music of the era, are going to love this beautifully, affectionately written novel. And I think that's, what did you think when you read that?
It just made my day, because I have to tell you, like, the story of how I've done lots of other writing stuff, but I don't think I've ever worked on a project where the sort of inspiration for it was so linear and direct. And what it was is I buy stuff at auction to furnish my apartment. And in late 2019, I bought at an entertainment memorabilia auction a very, very large portrait of Jessica Fletcher. It was Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher, painted actually for an episode of Murder, She Wrote by a studio artist. So I bought that, hung it in my bedroom, as one does. What are you going to do? I have trouble sleeping without Jessica Fletcher looking at me. And so I hung this, and I looked at it, and I had this idea that I wanted to do a cozy mystery set in a Palm Springs, because I think that's one of the only places you could really do an old Hollywood store. And I had that idea for that. And so that without that painting, I never would have done the book. So to have the showrunner read it and like it enough to blurb it was really, really exciting for me.
Did he know you had the portrait?
I told him on the phone, and I told him, he was like, "Who was the studio artist?" And I told him, and he remembered the guy. It was really funny. He
has so many great stories about that show. He is quite the font of.
It's just such a funny raconteur. I could just talk to him all day.
Yeah, he's great. Really talk about old time Hollywood. Let me quickly welcome you all, if you just are arriving, to Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze, where we're talking to the fabulous Zac Bissonnette about his debut cozy, A Killing in Costumes. If you're new to A Mighty Blaze, welcome. We are so pleased to have you with us.
Oh my God, it's Kim Powers, the great Kim Powers. Kim Powers was the first person to read. I sent him. He's like a friend. He's also just like the nicest guy in the world. I'm sure he has 1,000 people who are his best friends, but I consider him just a special person to me. And he read a just garbage first draft of this book, and he was so smart and so encouraging and had such good ideas. So it is just crazy to see him. Kim, I love you so much. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Oh, I love him too, and he's such a TV person with me, so we bonded over loving Diane Sawyer. And also his books, which are quite extraordinary.
Yes.
And really amazing, gorgeous literary fiction.
Yeah.
And Kim, please put in your in the comments. We're just going all over the place here. Put in the comments the name of your newest book, because it was quite astonishing, and I'd love everybody to know about that. We'll get you on Crime Time as well with Zac, the three of us. We can all talk. Crime Time, you should know really, really fast, was started almost 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago now, by the fabulous powerhouse team of Jenna Blum and Caroline Levitt to keep us talking about mysteries, keep us talking about books, keep us talking about every genre in the literary world, and to keep us communicating and keep us learning about new books and learning about new authors and sort of sticking together during these incredibly ridiculous, insane times. And we are still growing strong and going strong, 36 volunteers, 24/7 programming, and we are welcoming you here today. Let me introduce you to our author formally now that people are gathering. When I look over here, you all, I'm looking at the comments. Leisha Haney is saying, "I love the book cover." Yes, look at that. Me too. A Hollywood Treasures mystery. And Renee is saying, "I love Crime Time." Well, we love you, Renee. And Gail is saying, "Happy National Book Lovers Day today." So perfect debut day. I should ask you about your debut, Zac. What is it like to have your cozy debut today?
I mean, it's the most exciting thing, because it's what I love to read, and it's what always makes me happy. So, the idea that maybe I could provide some element of that for others is really exciting. And I think.
Yeah, but this is you've been going toward this day.
Yeah.
And it's been a year away and a month away and a week away and then tomorrow.
Yeah, I think they call it the calm before the calm in publishing. I think is the term they use for that. No, but I'm really excited. And one of the things that was cool about it to me was to be able to use a gay character and a lesbian character as the two leads. I think to have cozy mysteries going in a direction toward more diversity, I think is cool and important, while also still retaining all of the elements of cozies that we're like. This is not a kind of like racy book. It's like a book that your grandmother, I think, is for.
That would be me. That would be me.
No, it would not be.
Before we talk about cozies, let me just tell everyone about you a little bit. It's your debut fiction, but not your debut publication. New York Times bestselling author Zac Bissonnette's most recent book is, besides A Killing in Costumes, it's 2015's The Great Beanie Baby Bubble, Mass Delusion and the Dark Side of Cute. And that's the book that you were talking about when we met 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Which is really instructive and illustrative of how people think and motivation. We'll talk about that in a minute. He is an equity analyst at a hedge fund and lives in New York City with his partner and a tuxedo cat named Perry Como.
That is true.
Now that's what it says on the fancy websites. But on his own author site, his bio goes on to say, and I couldn't resist reading this to you, his favorite singer is Perry Como. His favorite author is Agatha Christie. His favorite tea is Harney & Sons Hot Cinnamon Spice. His current favorite Bath & Body Works candle is Vanilla Pumpkin Marshmallow, but that is subject to change as they release new scents. He recently ordered the 2021 limited release holiday fragrance, 'Tis the Season, for which he has high hopes, and he looks forward to trying the Tree Farm scent as well, and the online exclusive Pumpkin Pie remains a perennial contender. So
I like candles. Are
you worried about the smoke and the wick and on your ceiling?
No, I don't. I think if you buy nice enough candles and you vent it in I've never had an issue with it. But that's a good question.
I'm partial to grapefruit and lemon and vanilla, that kind of.
You have this is why it's a problem to have a cozy author on such a sophisticated show, because you like these very sophisticated adult scents. I like all the novelty stuff. So.
We'll have to get together with our candle collections. I really love that. So let's talk about A Killing in Costumes. It's Jay Allen and Cindy Cooper are the main characters, and they were soap opera stars in the 90s. And then what happened?
So they were a married singing duo. They were best friends, and they were married, and they sang together, kind of like a Steve and Edie type of thing. And then what happened was they were starring in a soap opera, and they both realized that they were gay. And there was a tabloid scandal. The network found out, the fans found out, and they were fired from the soap opera. Kind of the sort of thing that happened with people like Ellen DeGeneres, where even though the show stayed on, it ruined her career for a while. And so they were fired from the soap opera, lost everything. Jay moves to Las Vegas to become a pianist in a cocktail lounge, and Cindy becomes a financial advisor. But they become best friends. And then 20 years after their celebrity and their careers end, they moved to Palm Springs together to open a Hollywood memorabilia store called Hooray for Hollywood. And business is slow at first, but then they have a chance at a huge success when a 90-year-old former film vixen arrives with a chance for them to sell her collection of millions and millions of dollars of memorabilia that she's collected over the past 60 years. And when their main competitor for the deal is murdered, they have to solve the murder in order to clear their own names and hopefully land the consignment that can save their business.
Because they were the last to see the murder victim.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, it's really about, for me at least, it was about their relationship was really centered. I don't know, I mean, this may be specific to me, but then I've actually heard from friends when I was talking about this book, like my best friend growing up was a lesbian and I was gay, and neither of us knew this at the time. Never talked about it, and then 15 years later, I think she moved when we were like 10, and 15 years later, we sort of reconnected and found this out. and it was interesting because we obviously felt this connection somehow, that we were both different, even though neither of us knew it at the time, or we never talked about it. So the book for me is kind of about that special relationship between a gay guy and his lesbian best friend.
And it's so lovely, their relationship, how they deal with each other, how they understand each other, how they take care of each other, how they're a little feisty with each other. They know each other better than anybody else knows them. You were talking earlier, though, about putting this in a cozy. A cozy traditionally is a closed community, maybe like Hollywood memorabilia.
Yeah.
Quirky main characters. No graphic sex or violence. There's a milieu of cozies that we expect, and you've taken this and not gone outside the boundaries of what we expect in the genre, but you've made it be so personal and so unique, but also so inviting and entertaining. Did you think it was? How did you feel? Why did you choose a cozy, first of all? Because
I chose a cozy because I love reading them when I'm when I want to like feel better. Like I want it to be like a warm sort of pick me up thing. That's what I like reading. That's what not always. I read other things too, but that's what I've always wanted to write. And because I wanted these two main characters who have been through everything possible together. They've been stalked by paparazzi 20 years ago. Jay's been broke. Cindy's been a financial advisor she lost her wife. And they've been through everything together. And then they end up in another mess together. But sort of through this deep connection they feel with each other, they get through it. And that was what I wanted to show.
And you know what I left out in my list of things that in a cozy mystery was the mystery part, that there has to be, there has to be a fair mystery. And one of the things you were talking about earlier about what cozies are reminded me to ask you about this, that it's not easy to write a mystery, no matter what genre it is. You have to have a real story with real clues, with real suspects, with a real solution that's a satisfying and fair solution. And that's not an easy thing to do. What did you learn about writing the kinds of books that you love? What did you learn about writing mysteries, and how did you?
So much of it is just from reading them. It's funny, I think mysteries, obviously, genre fiction is always seen as a lower level than literature, which I certainly understand elements of that. It's certainly true of a lot. But there was someone, I forget who said it. It might have been S.J. Rosen said this, that a mystery writer, that it was something they said about Ginger Rogers, that she had to do everything Fred Astaire did backwards in heels, and that's what a mystery is you have to have characters and tension, and then you also have to have all these clues and red herrings that line up. And the hardest thing, and I think anyone who reads a lot of mysteries, I think, has had this realization that it's like the perfect response that you want when they find out who the killer is you want them to be totally shocked as their first reaction. You don't want them to solve it. That's not great. You want total shock. But then you want their second reaction to be, how did I not figure that out? And I think that's what's so hard about it, because it's easy to have it be either out of nowhere, which is not good, where you couldn't have solved it, that's bad, or obvious, that's also bad. So to have it be impossible to figure out, and then once you can't believe you didn't figure it out. And I think that's what every mystery writer is striving to do, and that's the trick of it, and that's what's so hard.
Yes, and that's what you do so gorgeously in A Killing in Costumes, because when I got to the end, when I'm doing exactly that, when I'm thinking, oh my golly, I'm supposed to be a smart reader, I should have seen that a million miles away. And then I went back and sort of looked through all the places that you had carefully and fairly placed clues that should have led me to that, but did not. And that's why writing mysteries is very, very difficult, because you can't give away too much.
Yep.
But you can't give away not enough. How conscious were you of that as you were writing it? Did you have an outline? Did you just go with it?
Yeah, I was very conscious of that. Like I grew up sort of loving all the Golden Age mysteries. So like for me, and this was, when I tried to, past things I tried to do, I was very focused on the mystery plot, and then the characters come less naturally to me. I think in the kind of writing element of it's less natural. So the plot, I was very focused on trying on that, right? And I actually started the book with this idea for a device I had that I thought was totally plausible and that hadn't been done before. And so I kind of worked my way back. I started with knowing who did it and what they were trying to cover up and how they'd done it. That was sort of how I started. And what was so fun about setting this in the world of Hollywood memorabilia is that when I was working on it, I asked a bunch of antiques people, like, who should I talk to try to understand the world of Hollywood memorabilia? And everyone tells me that there's this guy, Joseph Maddalena, you have to talk to. He runs the entertainment memorabilia department at Heritage Auctions. So I send an email, we set up a call, I tell him a little bit about the premise of the book. And the first thing he says is, that's totally plausible. He's like, these Hollywood memorabilia collectors are super intense. They're crazy people. And the idea that some old lady in Palm Springs has millions of dollars worth of props that no one's seen in 50 years, and she goes to put them up for sale, and there's a competition for it, and someone ends up dead. He's like, that could totally happen. And he was telling me all these stories.
What did you think of that moment? What did you think at that moment when somebody, and you talk about this interview in your author's note, so I send this all to you. What did you think when someone said, yes, sir, Zac, you are on the trail here?
So I loved it because, I think one of the things that made me want to use the entertainment memorabilia is that it's not, there are plenty of collectibles categories that are much more expensive. Like Dorothy's slippers are worth $2 to $3 million, I think, maybe more now. But, that's really not a lot of money in the world of contemporary art if you think about, what a Koons or a Damien Hirst sells for. But there is an emotional connection that people feel with their favorite movies that is so far beyond the sort of financial connections of things like commercial real estate or even most fine art. So that was what excited me to have him repeat that back to me, that the connection that people feel, the way he put it to me is, if you grew up loving The Wizard of Oz and Judy Garland was your hero and you get Dorothy's slippers, what more do you need? There's nothing more that you could ever have. So so the intensity that the collectors feel, it sort of permeates this whole world. That was what I wanted to capture in the manuscript, and then to be told that it's really like that was really, really exciting.
And also that lust for a thing that there's only one of sets up instant conflict.
So that's one of the other things I loved about it was, and there's an element, not to give anything away, but one of the things that's so cool with Hollywood memorabilia is because a lot of the stuff, you have to remember, old Hollywood at the time, they didn't know that they were making the thing that would become seen as the great American art form. This was seen as ephemeral, and a lot of it was sort of lost, and that kind of thing. So over the years, they found a couple more pairs of Dorothy slippers because it was from the prop department. And so that's kind of cool that, you might think something's one of a kind, but then maybe it isn't, and maybe it is. And so, there's lots of sort of magic in terms of the scarcity.
And once people start looking for them, you can just imagine these big, as one of your characters has, this big stash of things that they were just keeping for themselves and then didn't realize would be so valuable. And then when they did, ding, 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 their life changes. Talk a little bit about the person who calls your characters in, who has all these costumes.
So her name is Yana Tosh. She was a kind of character actress vixen in the 1950s and 1960s. Then she marries a real estate mogul and has kids, and she's totally out of the business by 1970. And she's sort of a cult favorite of Turner Classic Movies buffs.
Who's in your
head? No one really knows what happened to her. And it turns out, and they find this out when they meet her, that her husband had a real estate fortune, and she has spent the past 60 years, sort of like what Debbie Reynolds did, assembling this incredible collection of Hollywood memorabilia, traveling around the country, finding people who worked in prop houses, 40 years ago and buying what they have, and that she has meticulously documented her entire collection. And now she's 90 years old and she wants to sell it because she wants to sort of see who the new owners are going to be, which is another thing you hear about with some of these collectors, where they want to sell stuff often because they want to know who's going to have it. They don't want to left to an estate, and they want to kind of manage the disposition. So it's kind of cool.
Because they want to make sure it's someone who loves it or will take care of it. Why?
Yeah, and I think they're often worried that an heir might not know how much stuff is worth or might not appreciate it. They just want to make sure, because if you think about a collector, someone like Yana Tosh or like Debbie Reynolds, that like this was their life. The collection is really their great legacy to the world, and they're pretty protective of it.
Who did you envision, and what movie star did you picture when you were writing Yana?
Eartha Kitt.
Oh.
Yeah, I just, because she had this kind of like, I'm not going to try to do her voice, don't worry, but this kind of weird, kind of sexy, but also terrifying and creepy. And so, sort of alternately flattering and terrifying. I liked in kind of always keeping you off balance. And that was what I wanted Yana to be. It was kind of difficult to read, mercurial. I liked that in a.
And she's an actor.
Yeah.
And that's another cool thing about this.
Yeah, and that's a challenge that they have with trying to read her is, they can't always tell what she wants from them and whether she's, what the angle is. So she was a lot of fun to write, and it was fun to write her because, I don't have that much in common with a 90-year-old former film star. So it was really fun to try to get in her head and figure out what that would be like.
I mean, as an author, you have to do a little bit of method acting yourself. Just put yourself in her skin.
Of course, yeah. No, I mean that's what's so much fun is you have to be able to write all kinds of people.
Well, speaking of all kinds of people, the cast of characters in this book is so wonderful, and your understanding of that old Hollywood comes through so gorgeously in this book.
I'm laughing at Kim Powers, who says, "Let's get Angela Lansbury for the movie."
Definitely.
We're okay.
But we're casting the movie now. We should really do that. But I do think that the idea of failure and being forgotten and keeping your face on the screen and the power of the Luella Parsons and Hedda Hoppers of the world and how much that mattered and what happened to Jay and Cindy with their personalities and their reputations, how that kind of publicity can make or break you.
And be very sort of, I think, mental torture. Carrie Fisher, I think in her memoir described, because she, her parents were Debbie Reynolds and Eddie Fisher, and she described, it was such a beautiful and kind of haunting line. She described growing up with famous parents as you're watching a descent into obscurity, and that it is terrifying. That if you're
they know
it, and they are constantly aware of it, and that unless there are so few exceptions to this, in general, if you're a movie star, you will have a descent into obscurity over time, and that's terrifying. And I love these flags because that was part of the tension I wanted to capture with her, is that she had left her career to raise kids and then tried to have a comeback in the 90s that didn't really work. And so and her kind of always wondering, could I have been Elizabeth Taylor if I'd stayed in it? And, the kind of.
And they go into it with the knowledge, or should have the knowledge that this is not going to last forever. I mean, they can learn from the experience of other people who come and go.
It's so hard. It's so hard, though.
And yet they do it anyway.
And I think,
So you took your love of old movies, your love of memorabilia, your knowledge of the financial world, and your interest in cozies, and put them all together into this marvelous book, A Killing in Costumes. How did you? I mean, it is a good story, and we are led through it. But why is memorabilia? I mean, let me show you something that I found in our basement.
Oh my God!
When we moved into this house, and then there's also this. I'm sure this is just like some reproductions, but it's pretty funny.
Hold on, I got to show you mine.
Okay.
If I can. Which way? Hold on.
I love this. This is
there. It is. See, that's my Wizard of Oz poster.
Oh, look at that! And so that's real from the time.
No, that is it says it's French. It's that's like a repro from I want to say the 1990s. It's pretty cool, and it's
beautiful. It's beautiful.
I love it. I like repros sometimes because that was like for a limited release thing. So it's not like fake or anything. It was just they did
It is what it is for what
they did a re-release in the 90s and wanted kind of a cool poster. So yeah, I love it. I just that Dracula poster is great. I mean, movie posters are like one of my opinion, like one of the great undiscovered collector categories. You can buy mid-century posters of things that are famous but not rare for under $100 often. It's and they're huge and they're beautiful. So so if anyone wants a tip on movie memorabilia, posters are such a cool thing to collect.
See, now we have some insider trading going on. You wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that. The other thing, speaking of which, that you bring to this book so nicely is that you make the reader feel so smart. Your background in finance is woven in here so gorgeously. All kickbacks and business pitches and backroom deals on the one hand, and on the other hand, the regulations that keep financial people in check, supposedly. Was it fun to take that part of your real life and put it into this cozy?
Well, just full disclosure, in case my employer is watching, none of my life involves sort of breaching FINRA rules.
No. Goes without saying.
But no, it was so much fun because you see, in the financial world, how almost no one knows anything if you really think about it. All of us have 401ks. Do any of us know how it works? I mean, basically. And so the kind of opportunities for nefarious people are, I mean, you had that with your Help Me Hank segments where you're just seeing the messes and it's very sad. And so yeah, it was cool to bring that world into it. I think, Agatha Christie always loved using financial motives. I forget I think more than half of her, maybe 40, less than half, but a lot of her murders, it was a financial motive. And I think that's, I'm not saying whether this is a financial motive, to be clear, but it's, but there's stuff in the sort of world of shady financial advisors in here. And
when you were talking about Agatha Christie, and we were talking about old movies, and I love how this has come together to create A Killing in Costumes. If you just joined us, we're talking about A Killing in Costumes by Zac Bissonnette, which Zac will be giving away a copy of this book. So make sure that you.
The other thing I wanted to give away with the copy is I have a Murder, She Wrote script signed by Tom Sawyer. So whoever gets the book, I will also send you the script, and it'll be very cool.
Okay, so tell us that one more time, because this is a first ever on Crime Time. So Zac Bissonnette, tell us what your special.
So I have some original Murder, She Wrote scripts that are signed by Tom Sawyer, and they're really cool because you can watch along, and you can kind of see how they made the show and sort of where they might have deviated a little bit, and it's just. It's so cool because you always think of scripts as being, like, oh, read the script for some iconic movie like, Get Shorty or something. But to read the script for these kind of ephemeral, what were at the time and now I think are classic, but Murder, She Wrote, I just love reading them. So anyway, I'm so excited to send one to someone, and whoever gets it, please tell me what you think.
That's what we will spin the wheel of fun in about 5 minutes and see who wins this absolutely great prize. Do you love old movies? Did you watch them even more during the pandemic?
I don't love old movies as much as Jay and Cindy do. I don't, I like, which I think in a way helped because the thing you talked to me about, I saw some training you did once. You talked about reference frames and needing to be very careful with that in books. Remember this talk you did? I don't know where it was, but
I'm like, he listened to me. I can't believe it. This is so great.
Of course, I read your book. Of course, I listen to you. But that wanting to be careful about referencing stuff that will lose the reader, and so I tried to keep the movie references interesting, but not overly esoteric. I didn't want it to be a book where you have to be a Turner Classic Movie buff to watch. I wanted it to be kind of mainstream and also like modern too. Because it was one of the things that's cool is like one of the big collecting categories in movie memorabilia now is stuff from movies from the 90s and 2000s. And, people love those sci-fi stuff. I think memorabilia from Mean Girls and Clueless is worth a lot now. So it's sort of fun. It's not just, the golden age. In some ways, actually, early Hollywood stuff is not as popular as it used to be. Charlie Chaplin, it's not as cool as he is. It's not, the market for that. It's really much more Star Wars stuff is where it's at.
That's interesting because it means that it's sort of the time. that it's not just it's not nostalgia, but it's a connection that people have with something that they love.
Yeah.
That's,
No, I mean that's what I think is so cool about it. It's like if you think about the things that impact you most emotionally in your life, it's often movies, right? Like other than things that happen to you personally, it's generally not going to be, antique furniture or something. It's going to be movies or something.
and isn't that about storytelling? I mean, that's what storytelling is. That you're drawn into the
So
story.
if I were a better writer, I would have made that connection that you made. But I didn't. So, but that's exactly it. I mean that's what it is. It's the magic of storytelling. Gail Rosenfeld, that is a great comment. Give me a Maltese Falcon sculpture anytime. Love that.
I mean, I just wrote a short story actually
Oh.
About. Well, should I tell you this? About a guy who watches, all he does is watch the Maltese Falcon over and over and over and over and over.
Oh my God. That sounds dark. Is that as dark as it sounds?
Very dark, yes.
Okay.
Very dark.
That doesn't sound like a cozy.
No, it's not a cozy at all. No. But that's interesting. It made me think of that because it is so evocative and it is so multi-layered and it is haunting. And I think in the best of all ways, A Killing in Costumes is haunting as well because it connects us with Jay and Cindy. It connects us with a part of the world that we might not, Hollywood memorabilia, that we kind of think we understand, but we really don't understand. And it is a wonderful escape mystery. I mean, you dive right into this book. You're on the train with them. You're wanting to know what happens in the story. When you sent it to the first reader, who was that and what did they say?
It was Kim Powers.
It was Kim. So but you said that he read an old version.
He read my first draft of it because I had written it. I think I had lunch with him. It was right before the pandemic. And I sort of told him and he was so nice. He was like, I would love to read that for you. And I was like, it's going to be garbage. I sent it to him and he had the most helpful notes. He just, I'm going to cry. He just could not have been more helpful. It's just a wonderful person.
Well, I think everyone has people who in this life have people who help them at a moment when they maybe didn't even know they needed help. And they hear and they tell them the perfect thing at the perfect moment. And we just have to really, embrace that when it happens. Your Beanie Baby book, and that was the New York Times bestselling nonfiction book about the Beanie Baby craze. And I was trying to think, how did Zac get from Beanie Babies to A Killing in Costumes, this marvelous cozy? And I wonder if it's about motivation. Why people do what they do.
I was thinking, I think I'm like always fast because I have like obsession fascinates me, right? And I think that's because I think you're a journalist. Like obsessed people are such great subjects. Like you and I, like we have so many. I mean, I have obsessions too, but I also have like lots of interests. But anyone whose life is singularly devoted to one thing, whether that's trying to create the perfect beanbag animal or trying to assemble the most incredible movie memorabilia collection ever, that's like an interesting character to me. Like singular and narrow focus. And I think you see this in a lot of, I like it, a lot of domestic suspense stuff has that is sort of a thing where it's just a singular focus. It's an unusual person. So one of the reasons my favorite nonfiction writer is Susan Orlean, by the way. She captures, whether it was Rin Tin Tin or The Orchid Thief, like obsession. It's such a good theme. And I think that's like, not to sound pompous because it seems dumb for me to talk about like my stupid books as being like some sort of oeuvre, but I do think of obsession as a thing I like to think about.
Because in mystery, it's all about what somebody wants.
Yes.
And how far they'll go to get it.
Yes.
And then the Beanie Baby story is exactly that, and A Killing in Costumes is exactly that, and that's just a perfect combination. That is a wonderful observation.
I see question time. This is thrilling.
I was going to say we're running out of time, and Margaret in the control room note can read my mind and put up the question time. So let's have some questions for the fabulous Zac. Gail says, "Did you think of Sunset Boulevard while you were writing?"
I mean, I think of Sunset Boulevard no matter what I'm doing. To tell you the truth, it's one of my favorite movies. But yeah, I mean, I did because that's about a woman who's sort of living in sort of halcyon memories, which is there's a big element to that.
And I think it was Tom Sawyer who told me the story about how the song Memories was written for Sunset Boulevard, the play, and then got moved. Andrew Lloyd Webber moved it to Cats because Cats needed a new song.
Interesting.
So, isn't it? And so when you think about that, the Gloria Swanson character would be singing that song "Memories."
Midnight
it really makes sense.
Interesting. I never knew that. That's incredible.
Yeah, isn't that pretty interesting?
That's wild.
I'm pretty sure Tom Sawyer told me that. Yeah, it's a long story.
That's a whole spin on that song.
Linda is saying, "Hey, Linda, are you an author who embraces edits or dreads them?"
It's funny. So people have said to me, "Oh, like you're so eager to work on edits and so receptive to criticism," and it's like that's because I spend an hour screaming about how stupid the edits are and then I realize the person's right. So it's a little bit of both. But I always, my rule for edits, I think, is that oftentimes the editor or reader's solution for what you should do will be totally wrong and irrelevant. You need to come with something else. But in general, they're identifying problems that are real, so you have to do something. That's how I always think about it.
Yes.
I suppose once in a while you'll have feedback that's really just way off. But I think in general, if you have smart, sort of literate editorial feedback, 90% of the time they'll be right about a problem. And then the percentage of the time they're right about the solution is much lower than that.
Well, they'll just say, my editor will say, the reader will be unclear what's happening here. Please address.
That's like, I think it's so easy to underestimate when you're writing something. It's because it's also clear in your head how bad it is for the reader to be confused. And so that's the thing that I always am very, very trying to be attuned to, because you're not going to catch the stuff where the confusion, catching things that are confusing in your own work is very hard.
Yes, but isn't it a joy to realize it and then fix it? I mean, that's the wonderful part.
It's so much fun. Oh my God. Yeah.
Exactly. Who else has a question? You love the American Songbook so much. Will you work that into a future book?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I would love to. I can't say too much because I have not told anyone about this, but I'm working on what I hope will be it's a historical mystery set in the music world in New York City in 1960. Kim, I will message you and tell you all about it, and you can tell me that it's the weirdest idea ever. But anyway.
The musical world in New York in the 60s, what would that be?
I can't say.
You can't say.
Okay, fine. I'll tell you just because we're friends. And there's no one watching. This is all private, right? So I had this idea that I wanted to write a production assistant on the Perry Como show in 1960.
Oh, who wants to read?
Because I think anyone who knows me knows this. No one watching this does. I have been collecting Perry Como memorabilia obsessively since I was 12 years old, and I just know infinite amounts about him. I just had dinner with someone who worked on his show. So this is my idea. I don't know if anything will come of it. I have no idea, but that's what I've been working on, and it's just trying to sort of reinvent Perry Como as a sleuth. So
it'll be a mystery?
Yeah, that's the idea, that it would be him and a production assistant. Yeah.
That's the best idea I've ever heard.
It's an idea. The thing, I don't have to worry about anyone stealing it. It's not the most commercial, but I'm having ridiculous amounts of fun doing it. And
well, that's your responsibility to make it commercial. Does it have a title-ish?
Not yet, no. But what's funny about it is, I try to write every weekend, and even if it's something that I think has no commercial potential, or just because I think I get better. So I write lots of things that I never showed anyone because they're garbage. So, by the way, if you read this book and you think it's terrible, just realize that I wrote so much stuff that I didn't think was as good. so that's just for anyone who reads it. But yeah.
You have to get over that. This book is charming. It's funny. It's
you're so kind.
It's
you're very nice.
It's fair. It's a good mystery. It's wonderful characters. Don't even ever disparage this at all, Zac.
Wow.
Killing in Costumes is quite marvelous, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this. And I want to give away, not this one, I'm keeping this, but we'll give away another copy and the fabulous script from Murder, She Wrote, signed by showrunner Tom Sawyer. We should spin the wheel of fun to see who wins, and let's do that right now.
Oh my gosh, this is incredible.
This is awesome.
Oh my God.
I always think we should have music. Sing Perry Como. What would be No, a Mighty Blaze. Okay. Diane has one. That
Oh
is
my gosh, Diane, I can't wait to send this to you.
this is
I love your photo, Diane. See, this is yesterday was International Cat Day, so this is exciting.
so that's meant to be. Absolutely.
Meant to be. Diane, I can't wait to send it to you. I'm just so excited.
And Diane, you'll know just to send me your name and address, and we will get the info to Zac.
I will send it tomorrow.
Get you your book. Before I let you go, I want to thank you, Zac. Congratulations on your pub day. Your fan club is here, absolutely en masse, and we are so pleased that you are here. You got to be celebrating a little bit.
A little bit. I'm really just mysteries have given me so much, and to be able to hopefully give someone some of the elements of comfort and enjoyment that I've gotten from them is just incredible. So it's just such an honor to have anyone reading it. So I just can't even tell you.
See, Darlene is already saying she wants to read the Perry Como book.
Oh my God!
Pam was saying thank you for this.
You got one person who will read that. That's good to know.
Yeah, two, and Kim will love it as well. So us, and that's a bestseller. You all look for A Killing in Costumes. Diane, we are sending this to you. The rest of you go out and get it in about 30 seconds, not right now, because I want to tell you that next week we have one of the buzziest books of the year, and I cannot wait to start reading An Honest Living.
That book's amazing.
Okay, you tell me about it.
I can't say it's set in the New York bookselling world. It's just incredible. I have it in my bedroom. It's very noir. It's very stylized, but it's just an incredible book.
See, it's an incredible book, says Zac Bissonnette, and you heard it here first. And we will talk about it with Dwyer Murphy himself next week here at 4 o'clock on Tuesday on Crime Time. Zac, thank you so much. You're such a rock star, Kim Powers. We love you. Thank you for being here today, and thank you, all of you, for coming to Prime Time. We'll see you next Tuesday. Until then, remember, it is always safe inside a book, and we'll see you next time.